Welcome to BTEC Revision. In today's lesson, we're looking at expanding and factorization. By the end, we will be able to expand brackets to obtain expressions and factorize expressions to obtain brackets. How can you expand these brackets? To expand the product of two factors, you'll have to multiply every term in the first factor by every term in the second factor. For example, let's take 2x multiplied by 5x, then 2x times 1, then we can move on to 1 times 5x, and then 1 times 1. So that would give us 2x times 5x is 10x squared, plus 2x times 1 is 2x, plus 1 times 5x is 5x, plus 1 times 1 is 1. So that can be simplified to 10x squared plus 7x plus 1. One tip to note here is that depending on the number of terms in each bracket, in this case we have 2 and 2, if we multiply those, that's equal to 4. Therefore, we should get 4 terms in our expansion. That's a good way to check and see if you've got the right number of terms. Now we can move on to factorization, which is the opposite to expanding. We can take out the highest common factor. In this case, that is 7x, because we can times 7x with x plus 7. And when we expand this out again, we can check, see if we did this correctly. So 7x times x is 7x squared. And we can add 7x times 7, which is 49x. And that's equal to the first expression. Pause the video here and have a think about how you can factorize this expression. For factorization, we can think in reverse. So since we have the brackets, we can have x and x in each one because the coefficient of the expression here is 1, and x times x is x squared, which is going to be 1x squared. The next step to consider is there must be two numbers that add together inside of these brackets to make 14x, but also multiply together to make 49. So can you think of what those numbers could be? That number must be 7, because 7x plus 7x equals 14x, and 7 times 7 equals 49. Let's look at another example. We'll say x squared, take away 5x, take away 50. Can you try to factorize this expression? So we'll use the same method. X take away a number multiplied by x take away a number. Now let's think. This number multiplied by this number must be equal to a negative. So one side must be positive, because a positive times a negative gives you a negative. And these two numbers must add together to make negative 5. So the answer must be 5 and 10. Now, is the 5 positive or is the 5 negative? So we need to think. Let's start off with the 5 being positive. 5 times negative 10 gives you negative 50. So that's fine for the last term, but let's have a look for the middle term. So positive 5x, take away 10x, that's going to give you negative 5x. So that is correct. 5 and 10. Now we can check our answer. So we will multiply x and x gives you x squared. Then we'll multiply x and negative 10, so that's negative 10x. Then we have our 5x plus 5x, and then 5 times negative 10 is negative 50. Finally, simplifying, x squared, take away 5x, take away 50. And that's matching our original answer, so that is correct. The trick for this question is to separate the terms in such a way that we can factorize the sides of the equation to have the same common factor. We will start with 2x squared plus x. We'll separate the 5x into x and 4x, and we're left with the last term plus 2. Now, we did that so we can factorize this x out of the first two terms to give us 2x plus 1 inside the bracket, and we can see there is another 2x plus 1 inside the last two terms. So that would be plus 2x plus 1. Now we need to check and see if we did this correctly. So we can expand these terms and we can check and see if this is agreeing with our first expression. So 2x times x is 2x squared plus 2x times 2, so that's 4x, plus 1x, so that's 5x, plus 1 times 2 is 2. So that is matching, so that is correct. Now, pause the video here and complete these questions. Question number 1, this is called the difference of two squares, because if we look, we have x squared plus 2x, take away 2x, take away 4, and the 2x terms cancel, which gives us x squared take away 4. And for question number 2, we have something called the perfect square, because we have x plus 10 multiplied by x plus 10, which is equal to x squared plus 10x plus 10. For the factorization question, number 1, we have x. Now, we must have a term that adds together and multiplies together to give 10 and 25 respectively. And therefore, we must have a positive number for both numbers inside the brackets. So we need to think which number can multiply together to give 25, but add together to give 10. So that has to be the number 5. Okay, and for question number 2, we can do something similar. We can write x in the bracket and x in the second bracket. Now we need to think, is it going to be positive or is it going to be negative? So two numbers multiply together to give a positive 64 here, and would add together to give a negative. So that must mean that we must have a negative in both brackets, because negative times a negative gives you a positive, and a negative plus a negative gives you a negative. Now we need to think of a number that we can multiply together to give 64, but add together to give 16. And that number has to be 8. Now, pause the video here and attempt this exam question. This question, we will take 3t squared and we will expand the 4x out. We would separate the term into a t plus 3t, which gives you 40, and the last term is plus 1. Now we need to think of a common factor that can go in both brackets, and that has to be 3t plus 1, because we can take out the t in the first two terms, and that would be t times 3t plus 1. And for the second term, we can see that is already 3t plus 1. So that would be plus bracket 3t plus 1. And then the coefficient for that is 1. So now it's very easy. We will take this term, 3t plus 1, in brackets, and multiply the other two values in front of the brackets, t and 1, inside the bracket, t plus 1, and that's the final answer. And that's the end of the lesson. If you would like to boost your grades, why don't you try the quiz questions at btecrevision.com. See you next time.